You know, one of the things that I like doing when I'm fishing some of the wider stretches of the Grand River is to put on a jointed Rapala, and that's what I've got on here. Because the water's all about the same depth. It's about 2 feet to about 4 feet. So it's kind of hard to work a, a artificial crayfish or a tube, because the fish can be anywhere. So what I've got on here is a little jointed 7-centimeter Rapala, and I've got a pretty good sized bass that nailed it. I'm just trying to get him close to the kayak. And I've got just one single hook, and he's not hooked very well, so I hope he stays on. They've got so much power. That's one thing about smallmouths. You can see the way they're thrashing. At least I'm close to the water. That's one advantage of being in a kayak. I don't know if I can get my hand just underneath this fish. So I don't know if I want to try lipping him, even with that single hook right in the mouth. Nice and easy. Hey, got him in the boat. Now, isn't that a pretty smallmouth? That's what we were looking for here on the Grand River. You know, it's fun getting those smaller fish on the artificial crayfish, but you can see how healthy these fish are. This one's about 2.5 pounds. I bet you he's about 16 inches. He's got a really nice belly, and he's just hooked at that one single hook in the roof of the mouth, and you saw the hook just fell out. What a gorgeous fish. I'm just going to put him in the water, and you're going to see him take off real quick in this water. Look at that. Isn't that a gorgeous fish? Just coming out here, you know, doing some drifting, casting. Gonna just let him go down. Now this little jointed Rapala that you see here is a minnow color. It's called an Italian minnow. And it's 7 centimeters long. It normally has 2 treble hooks, but I've taken the front one off and I just have a single one at the back. I'm gonna show you some of the colors that work real well when you're fishing like this in shallow water. You can see I've got a real variety in this box because, you know, I remember fishing the Grand River about 25 years ago, a long time, and we were getting lots of fish on these jointed minnow baits. So the color that I'm using today, and just one size smaller, is this particular color here. That's called the Italian minnow, and it works really well because a lot of the bait fish I've seen in the water here have been darker colored. They're not your silver with a black back. So that's a good color, and the size that I'm using, I've got a whole bunch of them here. Maybe I'll bring them all out together here. That's the actual size. So see the difference here, how small these are? Because a lot of the bait fish I've been seeing have been about that long. Now, if I was fishing some of the other stretches for walleye, I'd probably be using some of the bright colors like the chartreuse and fire tiger that I'm holding in my hand right here, and even some of the larger sizes right up to a J9. This is the 9 centimeter right here, and I'll see if I can get one out. So most anglers that fish bigger waters and lakes would be using the 9 centimeter jointed. That's what I'm holding up in my hand right there. But these are excellent baits when you're dealing with conditions like here. You can see in the water right now we're in about 2-3 feet of water, and there's a lot of vegetation on the bottom. It's one of the best ways to be able to put a lure in front of a fish without getting a lot of weeds, and that produced a nice bass. And it's kind of nice. This is one of the wider sections that we've been fishing on the Grand, and we're casting these jointed Rapalas and just hitting fish out in the open. It's kind of nice. My friend Bob is down in the other kayak, and he's gotten a couple of fish in the last few minutes, and they of course were bigger. This guy's smaller, but they're so nice. I'd have to say that the average is about a pound for these smallmouth, and they're scattered everywhere. We've caught them as shallow as about 1.5 feet and as deep as about 4 or 5 feet. They're so healthy. They're very well fed. Some have more models than others. This guy's a nice green color, probably because he came off of some weeds. We're only in about 2.5 feet of water. So some of these fish are pretty shallow. Now the rod that I'm using for casting this little jointed Rapala is an actual rod that's made for kayak fishing. It's a kayak rod. And there's Bob. He's fighting a fish. Look at all that commotion on the surface. So you can see here that they're all over. Nice fish, Bob. This particular rod is part of the North Coast series, and you can see that it's got a PCV grip, and it's a split grip, which is kind of nice. And see that ring that's there? It comes with the rod because it's a kayak rod, so that you can put a lanyard on it, a lanyard snap or a line. Now what I've done this custom little sleeve that's made out of one of the Rapala rod wraps. Much like one that I had here under my foot. It's not there anymore. But anyway, what I've done is I've slid it on top so that it's a little bit more comfortable, cushiony. And because they don't use metal where they finish off this reel seat, the whole thing floats, which is kind of nice. So if you were to drop it over the side, even though I've got a lanyard, it would float on the surface. So the split grip is kind of nice because it enables you to cast with two hands. So I'm just going to show you here the presentation that we've been using. We just fire the lure out, and these lures are very light. A 7-centimeter jointed lure only weighs a matter of a couple of ounces. We're just casting and retrieving it steadily, and the key is to try to keep it over the vegetation. The other nice thing about this rod is that it's long enough so that if you hook a good sized fish and it wants to take you around the kayak, you can go right around the kayak on this 12-footer or even that 15-foot kayak that we have over there. And a lot of times they'll come up and hit it when it's just sitting there. I'm just going to pause it. See it right there on the surface? Well, it almost looks like an injured bait fish, like a broken action from side to side. So we've missed quite a few fish doing that because they're so excited when they come up that they miss the lure. Most of my fish have come from just a steady retrieve like this. So the two presentations really that work really well here in the middle grand, let's say, is using either a plastic tube or a plastic crayfish anywhere from 1.5 to 3 inches, or casting a number 7 centimeter up to about a 9 centimeter jointed minnow bait, just like this one here. And whenever you get weeds like that on it, you have to keep them clean, so you got to take them off so it doesn't take the action away.
Canadian Sport Fishing has been brought to you by Rapala Premium Fishing Gear, crafted from experience. Yamaha on the water. This is my Yamaha. What kind of Yamaha are you? Dickies, a legend in work since 1922. Lucky Strike. More fish fight with a Lucky Strike.
I've gotten really spoiled using these beautiful ocean kayaks. The one that you see here on the outside is 15 feet long. That's the Prowler. And you can see that it's a little bit more hydrodynamic. It's got a deeper V. It's slimmer, and it's really designed for big waters. What I like about the sit-on-top kayaks is that they're very buoyant. All the compartments are sealed, and even where they have these plugs, I'm going to pull this plug out for you. You see how you can see the water right through the plug? This is a molded hole. So even if water, see this water that's in here? If I push it up, it just drains right out of the kayak, whether I'm on shore or out in the middle of the river fishing or a lake. So they're an ideal craft to fish all kinds of water.